June 1942 marked a turning point in the Pacific theater, though few realized it at the time. Hidden beneath the seemingly calm waters around Midway Atoll, a deadly chess game was about to unfold between the United States Navy and the Imperial Japanese Fleet, one that would decide the course of the war for years to come. But before the battle could rage, a smaller, more personal story was quietly unfolding. The story of 6 torpedo squadrons, young men who faced the ocean and sky with courage that few could imagine. The preparations began in the weeks leading up to June 4th. From the decks of the USS Hornet and USS Enterprise, pilots and crew from Torpedo Squadron 6, 8, and 3 carried out relentless training flights over the Pacific. Their mission was straightforward in theory: launch torpedo attacks against Japanese carriers, but the execution was anything but. The pilots knew that torpedo attacks were among the most dangerous maneuvers in naval aviation: slow, vulnerable, and easy targets for Japanese Zero fighters and anti-aircraft fire. Each squadron was equipped with the Douglas TBD Devastator, a plane already showing its age against faster and more maneuverable enemy fighters. Yet, their resolve remained steadfast. Lieutenant Commander John Waldron of ED-8 would later write in his mission log, "We fly knowing most of us may not return, but the Navy must strike, and strike we shall." The human struggle was palpable. Young men, many barely out of flight school, wrestled with fear and uncertainty as they donned flight suits and strapped into cramped cockpits. In the cramped mess halls, conversation was a mix of bravado and quiet anxiety. Some wrote letters home, leaving words of love and hope behind in case they never made it back. The stakes were clear. Midway was the last significant American outpost in the Pacific before the Japanese could consolidate control over the Central Pacific. Losing it would have meant giving Japan a strategic foothold, threatening Hawaii, and potentially altering the trajectory of the war. The airmen were not just facing enemy pilots, they were confronting the immense weight of history itself. Tactical planning added another layer of tension. Intelligence had revealed Japanese movements, but details were incomplete and often contradictory. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz and his staff at Pearl Harbor relied heavily on deciphered Japanese codes. Yet even with this advantage, uncertainty remained. Routes, timing, and coordination had to be perfect. The torpedo squadrons had to fly at low altitudes to ensure their weapons would hit, exposing them to a deadly combination of flak and enemy aircraft. Every flight brief ended with a sobering reminder that once airborne, there would be no turning back. Amidst the tactical calculations, there was also wisdom drawn from experience and reflection. Lieutenant Waldron's journal captured a recurring theme. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. This sentiment resonated across the squadrons as men contemplated what awaited them in the skies above Midway. It was a lesson not just for pilots, but for anyone confronting danger, a timeless reflection on the human spirit under pressure. Even today, military historians point to these personal accounts as examples of bravery that transcended the battlefield, highlighting how ordinary individuals rise to extraordinary challenges. The preparations culminated in a tense, humid dawn on June 3rd. Pilots performed final checks on engines, torpedoes, and communications equipment. Deck crews ran alongside the aircraft, shouting warnings and instructions over the roar of engines. There was no fanfare, no marching bands or parades, just the quiet, steady determination of men who understood the magnitude of their mission. Yet, even in these moments of readiness, an unsettling uncertainty lingered. The vast Pacific Ocean would soon become both battlefield and graveyard, and some of these airmen would vanish without a trace, leaving only fragments of memory, letters, and debris behind. As the sun rose over Midway Atoll, casting golden light on the steel decks of the carriers, the torpedo squadrons prepared for the unknown. Their planes, engines humming and wings cutting the morning breeze, were ready to confront history head-on. But the story of these young men was just beginning, and the fate of many would remain shrouded in mystery for decades to come. The ocean waited silently below, a vast witness to bravery, sacrifice, and a question that would haunt generations: who would return, and who would vanish into the vastness of the Pacific? The morning of June 4th, 1942, broke with a deceptive calm over the waters of Midway Atoll. For the airmen of Torpedo Squadron 6, 8, and 3, this was the moment they had trained for, a strike that could cripple the Japanese carrier fleet and shift the balance of the Pacific War. But what awaited them was far more perilous than any exercise. An ocean alive with unseen dangers, enemy fighters on high alert, and anti-aircraft fire ready to tear through the sky. At precisely 7 a.m., the squadrons launched from the USS Hornet and USS Enterprise, their engines vibrating through the deck plates as they climbed into the clouds. Navigation was a struggle. Even with compasses, maps, and radio guidance, thick clouds and intermittent Japanese fighter patrols scattered the planes across the vast expanse of the Pacific. Pilots like Ensign George Gay of VD-8 would later recall moments of profound isolation, flying hundreds of miles from their carriers, unsure of where friend or foe might appear. The torpedo planes were slow, lumbering Douglas TBD Devastators, fully loaded with torpedoes, making them easy targets for the swifter Mitsubishi Zeros patrolling the area. As they approached the Japanese fleet, anti-aircraft fire erupted from below, turning the skies into a deadly gauntlet. The human struggle was immediate and brutal. Crews fought to maintain formation, radio signals crackled with chaos, and pilots had to make split-second decisions in the face of near-certain death. Many torpedo planes were shot down within minutes, leaving entire squadrons decimated. Despite the overwhelming odds, these young men pressed on, driven by duty and the hope that their sacrifice might turn the tide of war. One pilot's diary entry captures the moment vividly. The Zeros came from nowhere. We held our line, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the enemy carriers. I knew many of us would not return, but we had to make the attack count. Amidst the carnage, harsh lesson emerged. Bravery alone was not enough to ensure survival. Tactical coordination was critical, yet confusion and scattered formations hindered effectiveness. The battle underscored a broader insight about warfare. Intelligence and preparation can only go so far in the chaos of real combat. Admiral Raymond Spruance, commanding the U.S. forces at Midway, later reflected that the sacrifice of the torpedo squadrons, though costly, drew Japanese fighters away from the dive bombers who would ultimately strike the enemy carriers, illustrating a painful but strategic truth about coordinated attacks and the value of diversionary tactics. For modern audiences, there is a lesson in this tragedy. In high-stakes endeavors, military, professional, or personal coordination, communication, and courage are inseparable. Acting alone, even with skill and determination, can leave one exposed to overwhelming forces. The torpedo squadron's ordeal is a sobering reminder that heroism is often inseparable from strategy and planning. As the sun climbed higher over the Pacific, the losses became devastatingly clear. Only a handful of planes made it back to the carriers, many of them badly damaged. The majority of airmen were lost to the vast, unforgiving ocean, vanishing without a trace. Search and rescue operations would later comb the waters, recovering scattered debris and personal effects, but the fate of many remained unknown. Families received letters and notices that offered little closure, and the airmen who had vanished became living mysteries, their courage remembered but their final moments largely unknown. The ocean, calm and indifferent, had claimed them, leaving behind only echoes of bravery and unanswered questions that would haunt the Navy and the world for decades to come. The aftermath of the torpedo attacks revealed a grim reality. Several planes and their crews had vanished entirely, swallowed by the vast Pacific. Despite valiant efforts by the surviving pilots and carrier-based search teams, only fragments of the missing squadrons were ever recovered. The ocean offered no answers, only floating debris, life jackets, and scattered personal effects, a haunting testament to the unpredictability and lethality of aerial warfare over water. Search and rescue operations were launched immediately. Destroyers and patrol aircraft scoured thousands of square miles, often in treacherous conditions, hoping to find survivors. Coast watchers on nearby atolls reported occasional sightings of rafts or debris, but definitive confirmation of lives saved was rare. One poignant diary entry from a missing pilot read, "If this is my last flight, let them know I went with honor." The sea is vast, but we go where we are sent. These words would later serve as a chilling reminder of the human cost behind strategic victories. Amid the physical search, intelligence officers pored over fragmented reports, attempting to reconstruct the last known positions of the squadrons. Radio intercepts, Japanese reports, and eyewitness accounts were pieced together like complex puzzle, but significant gaps remained. Some pilots were reported diving toward enemy ships, only to disappear behind clouds, while others were last seen heading toward open ocean, never to be seen again. The inability to account for every crew member created an enduring mystery that haunted both the Navy and the families of the missing. The loss of the squadrons also highlighted a critical tactical insight. Even meticulously planned operations could result in unforeseen catastrophes. As historian Craig Simons later noted, the torpedo squadron's attacks were costly, yet their bravery diverted Japanese fighters and contributed directly to the success of the dive bomber strikes. Victory and sacrifice are often inseparable in war. The chapter underscores how valor and strategy intersected in tragic ways, producing outcomes both heroic and heartbreaking. For modern viewers, this chapter offers a profound reflection on risk, courage, and uncertainty. In any high-stakes mission, military, medical, or corporate, the unexpected can overturn even the best-laid plans. The story of the vanished airmen reminds us that sacrifice and determination may not always guarantee success, yet they remain essential in pursuit of greater objectives. As days passed, the missing pilots became the subject of speculation, rumor, and enduring historical inquiry. Families clung to letters and fleeting memories, while historians debated the final fates of those lost. The unanswered questions left a haunting shadow over the Victory at Midway, who survived for a brief moment only to vanish, and who had been lost forever in the silent depths of the Pacific. The mystery lingered, unresolved, setting the stage for deeper investigations and revelations in the chapters to follow. Amid the wreckage and debris of the torpedo attacks, a new unsettling possibility emerged. Some of the missing airmen might have survived their initial crashes, only to fall into enemy hands. Intelligence reports hinted at this grim scenario, though confirmation was scarce. Japanese carriers in occupied islands in the region held prisoners of war, but records of specific captures were incomplete, leaving a cloud of uncertainty over the fate of several crews. U.S. Navy cryptographers and intelligence officers worked tirelessly to track potential movements of these airmen. Signals intelligence, code-breaking, and intercepted communications offered tantalizing clues, but nothing conclusive. The missing pilots' last positions were approximated through a combination of survivor testimonies and Japanese operational logs, yet gaps remained. Analysts pored over every fragment of data, attempting to connect the dots, but the vast expanse of the Pacific and the chaos of combat made certainty impossible. The human element of this mystery weighed heavily on both naval officers and the families back home. Sailors and officers felt the anguish of not knowing whether their comrades were dead or prisoners, trapped somewhere in hostile territory. Personal accounts from surviving airmen describe the haunting uncertainty. "We flew into the unknown, and some did not return. We hoped they found shelter, though every day the hope grew dimmer." The psychological toll of such disappearances was profound, highlighting an often overlooked aspect of wartime service: the burden of unresolved loss. Historical insight from this period underscores the fog of war. Even with advanced intelligence capabilities, the vastness of the Pacific and the rapid pace of military engagements created gaps in knowledge that could never be fully bridged. Admiral Nimitz himself remarked, "We fight with the best information we have, yet uncertainty is always our companion." This chapter illustrates the limitations of human foresight and the enduring challenge of accounting for every life amidst global conflict. For modern audiences, the lesson resonates beyond warfare. It is a reminder that uncertainty and incomplete information are inherent in complex operations, whether in military strategy, disaster response, or large-scale logistics. Decisions must often be made with courage, relying on judgment, intuition, and collective effort, even when outcomes remain unknown. As the U.S. Navy continued to piece together intelligence reports and search for survivors, the fate of the vanished airmen remained an open question. Some may have drifted in rafts, others may have been captured, but the true story of each squadron member lingered beyond reach. The mystery of their disappearance would fuel investigations, historical debate, and lingering emotional weight for decades, a silent thread connecting the heroism of Midway to the enduring enigma of the Pacific's vast waters. In the weeks following the Battle of Midway, the Navy launched detailed investigations to understand both the tactical successes and the devastating losses suffered by the torpedo squadrons. Survivors recounted harrowing experiences, dodging anti-aircraft fire, witnessing comrades plummet into the sea, and struggling to maintain formation under relentless attack. Meanwhile, analysts compared U.S. after-action reports with captured Japanese logs, attempting to reconstruct the fates of the missing airmen, though significant gaps persisted. The investigations revealed both the strategic brilliance and the tragic human cost of the battle. While the torpedo squadrons were nearly annihilated, their attacks had drawn Japanese fighters down to low altitude, leaving the enemy carriers vulnerable to dive bomber assaults. Historian Craig Simons later described this as a grimly orchestrated sacrifice that directly contributed to American victory. Yet, for every success recorded in the annals of history, there remained the silent absence of those who never returned, their stories incomplete and their families left in limbo. Memorials were established to honor the courage of the vanished airmen, from plaques aboard the surviving carriers to monuments at naval bases. Each tribute served as both a remembrance and a reminder of the unknown. Letters sent home by the pilots became treasured keepsakes, hinting at bravery, camaraderie, and moments of quiet reflection amid chaos. The missing airmen became symbolic of a larger, often unquantifiable cost of war, embodying both heroism and unresolved loss. The historical debate surrounding their disappearance persists to this day. Scholars analyze flight paths, Japanese carrier logs, and oceanographic data in an attempt to locate crash sites and piece together final moments. Some believe a few may have survived long enough to reach remote islands, while others likely perished almost immediately in the frenzied attacks. This continuing investigation emphasizes the enduring mystery of the battle, highlighting how even decisive victories carry stories left untold. For modern viewers, this chapter offers a profound insight. History is often incomplete, shaped by both recorded achievements and the shadows of what remains unknown. The vanished airmen remind us that courage can exist alongside uncertainty, and that remembrance plays a critical role in preserving human experience for future generations. Despite the analysis, the story of the missing torpedo squadrons remains a delicate balance between documented heroism and unresolved fate. Their sacrifice is remembered, their bravery celebrated, yet the ocean still holds secrets, questions of who survived a fleeting moment and who was lost forever, leaving a haunting gap in the history of Midway that continues to draw the curiosity of historians, families, and naval enthusiasts alike. Decades after the Battle of Midway, the vast Pacific still held its secrets. Occasional expeditions and oceanic explorations uncovered fragments of aircraft wreckage, life jackets, and personal artifacts, offering glimpses into the fates of the vanished airmen. Yet, for many, the final moments remained lost to the depths, a silent testament to the ocean's immensity and indifference. Families and historians alike continue to search for answers. Memorial services, oral histories, and recovered letters kept the memory of the torpedo squadrons alive, even as exact details of their disappearance remained elusive. Some artifacts, like the serial numbers on torpedoes or markings on recovered wreckage, provided small clues that allowed researchers to match remnants to specific planes or crews, but these findings were often fragmentary and inconclusive. The mystery persisted, captivating naval historians and amateur explorers who hoped to finally piece together what had happened to each airman. The story of the vanished pilots also offered enduring lessons in courage, sacrifice, and the human cost of warfare. Their bravery under impossible odds exemplifies how individual actions can influence broader outcomes, even if the full story is never fully known. Modern military strategists, historians, and educators continue to study their missions, emphasizing the critical interplay of intelligence, timing, and selfless valor. Letters recovered from the families remind us that heroism is not measured solely by survival, but also by willingness to act in the face of near-certain danger. Today, memorials at Pearl Harbor, Midway Atoll, and naval cemeteries around the United States honor the memory of those lost. Scholars continue to analyze records, search for wreckage, and document stories passed down through oral history. Each recovered artifact or newly interpreted log entry adds a piece to the puzzle, yet the vast majority of the airmen's final fates remain unknown. This enduring mystery connects generations, reminding us that the ocean, while a witness to history, does not always reveal its secrets easily. As the sun sets over Midway, casting long shadows across the same waters that once bore witness to the battle, the vanished airmen remain both heroes and enigmas. Their courage shaped the outcome of the Pacific War, yet their absence leaves questions that linger even today. The story closes not with certainty, but with reflection. Some histories are measured not only by victories won, but by the mysteries that endure, the sacrifices remembered, and the enduring search for understanding in the face of the unknown.